Okay, thank you very much again for the opportunity to share this Olami time window with you and experience Torah together with you. What I'd like to do for this last session, with your permission, is try to approach something as deeply as possible. Let's learn some Torah together at a deep level. You have the energy for that on a Sunday morning? Yeah. Right. Okay, so without any compromises, let's look at one of the most difficult areas of Torah thinking. Comes out of the parshas we've been reading, try and explain that as well, and explore something that is difficult. Some people find this even distressing. Very difficult challenge in the arena of free will, and I'll try to explain it as clearly as I can. I apologize to the translators. It's not easy to do this on the fly with a technical subject, but let's try and put our heads into Torah. We've experienced many things on this weekend and the days preceding it. We've experienced inspirational events, inspirational talks, taste of Torah learning. Let's finish with a real in-depth analysis of a Torah subject. So you have to be wide awake for this, okay? There are many parts to it, and let's see if we can unfold it together. One of the most difficult challenges in Torah thinking is the question of whether your free will can ever affect anyone else. A very difficult issue. This is known as the clash between Bechira and Hashgacha. Your free will and someone else's divine providence, let's call it that. In other words, I have free will to affect myself, that's clear. If I do something dangerous and I get harmed, there's no philosophical problem with that. But what if I choose to do something that harms you when you don't deserve to be harmed? Do you see the question? I don't see any enlightened faces. Let me give you a dramatic example. One person's walking down the street and someone else tries to kill him. What happens in that clash between the free will of the aggressor who tries to kill the individual and the divine providence and protection of the person walking down the street? For example, let's say you interview Hashem. Hashem, see Mr. A walking down the street? How do you feel about him? Hashem says, he's cool, no problem with him. Hashem, are you going to kill him today? Nope, he's got 25 years to live, no problem. And while you're talking to Hashem, Mr. B turns the corner and tries to kill Mr. A. Do you see the problem? Anyone? Okay, I'll explain the problem, Ellie. Stay with me. If you say that he cannot kill him because God wasn't going to kill him, you've pulled the teeth of the free will of the aggressor. You've limited my free will to do something to somebody else. If you say that he can kill him, that's even worse. He's killing somebody that Hashem was not going to kill. How could you do that to somebody else? Do we see the problem? I see very, very few nods. It would seem that there are only two ways to approach this problem. Either we have to say that whenever you do something to somebody else, it was going to happen anyway. Right? In other words, somebody kills someone else, it means he was going to die anyway. Had you not chosen to be the one who killed him, he would have died. Now you stepped in, Hashem said, fine, you want to kill him? Go right ahead. If you don't, I'll make a brick fall off a building or a bus come around the corner. We say, Habe shluchim lamakim, God has many agents, and if you don't do it, something else will. But if you want to do it, go ahead. Which means that he would have died anyway. Of course you're guilty, there's no question about that. You pulled the trigger. But you didn't cause something to happen to somebody else that wouldn't have happened otherwise. Is this clear? Yes? No? But if that's true, it means you never really do something to someone else that wasn't going to happen. When the family of that murdered person comes to you with accusations, you can say, look, your father was going to die anyway. Okay, so the death became a murder, which is a language you find used in the of Sadyagon. That is very difficult. It means whatever happened. Let me give you an example. You get in your car, you pull out, some idiot backs into you and makes a major dent in your car. You get out and start yelling and screaming. Well, you're Olami students, you'd get out and say, good morning. And you say, look what you've done to my car. The fellow says to you, you're a religious Jew, aren't you? You say, yes. He says, well, you must believe you had it coming. What are you going to do with me? No, we don't see the world that way. But is that the correct interpretation? Okay, raise your hand, please, if you don't see the problem. Anybody? You understand the question? You don't see the question? You don't have a problem. Let me say it again. If somebody has divine protection, that's called divine providence, okay? Hashem is watching over every individual. We believe that, clearly. How could anyone touch them? Which means your free will is limited to hurt or help anyone else. I don't understand. Again, we're talking about a clash. When there's no divine decree on someone to die, could someone kill him? That's the question. No, it's not like this. Well, what happens to... Mr. A is walking down the street. He's not decreed to die. Could you kill him? Yes, Mr. Horn. I would like to show you that he could. That's one approach, and I think it's wrong. Stay with me. Stay with me. You know, let me make one comment in preparation. Torah, listen carefully to this, please. Torah is supposed to develop new ears. New ears. When you come to Torah with preconceptions and you fit the Torah ideas into your world of knowledge, you'll never get anywhere. You'll get worse. The more you learn, the more you'll convince yourself of the things you thought already. The source for this, King David HaMelech says, Oznaim karisa li Hashem. Oznaim karita li. You tore open my ears. Real Torah should give you new ears. Not new things that you hear. New way to hear things. Is this clear? You come to Torah study, you have to be prepared for your thinking to be radically changed. We're not talking about giving up your intellect and your judgment. We're talking about being open to new constructions. Completely new. And I'd like to suggest to you here a new thought. Not conventional, not the way people conventionally think about this, but I think it's the right way, and I'll try to prove it to you. So that's our question, the clash between free will and hashgacha. To understand this, let's take a tour through a few Torah areas. Let's begin with this. In the last century, there was by the way, if you'd like to look up the technicalities and go through this carefully in my book on free will, there's a long chapter on this with all the references. You can look it up and learn through the primary sources. And that book's being done in Hebrew now as well. But I'll give you an overview of the subject. There was a very learned rabbi who was visiting a commercial fair, I think it was in Leipzig, where people bought and sold. And the procedure there was, if any people had litigation, there was financial dispute, they would make a bet din. A bet din means 3 elected individuals, right? You know that in Jewish court there are always an odd number of judges, never an even number. And they would elect 3 people to be on the beis din, and then they would hear the case. While he was there doing business, he was a very learned rabbi, a senior rabbinic figure. There were 2 Jews who had some financial problem with each other, and so the local people convened a beis din. They elected 2 of the local people to be judges on the bet din, and since he was a known rabbi, they put him on the bet din as well. And he found himself in a very strange dilemma. In fact, he wrote this as a question to the great Pischei Tshuva, one of the great commentaries on the Code of Jewish Law. You can look it up yourself. It is a section called Chesed Mishpat Yud Ches, chapter 18. He writes a long analysis of this question. But here's the question. He says, I was sitting on this beis din, myself and 2 other judges. The case began to be heard, and it became immediately apparent to me that the other 2 judges were lying. They were friends of the one party. They were going to judge in his favor. The money would change hands in the wrong direction, and I would be party to a miscarriage of justice. Is this clear? In the laws of beis din, there's a vote. The vote goes according to the majority, and the minority is not even allowed to express. For example, if I'm sitting with these 2 individuals right here, me and these 2 guys, okay, we're judging your case. They outvote me. I'm forbidden to go to you afterwards and say, I was on your side, but they outvoted me. Not even allowed to disclose that. The reason is that a majority annuls a minority, and the ruling comes down as if it's all of us. So I'm completely absorbed in a wrong decision, completely false and a lie, miscarriage of justice. So he thought to himself, well, what can I do? If I vote for the truth, they'll outvote me. Perhaps I should say, I don't know. Because the law is that if a judge in halakha, if a judge just says, I don't know, the case is closed. They start again, but the case is closed. Why? Because now you're left with only 2 judges, and a Jewish bet din can never have an even number of judges. Clear? So I can say, I don't know. But he said the dilemma was, to say I don't know, he would have to lie. Because he did know. Now the question is, what is called the truth? Is the truth in Judaism, should I say I don't know, which is a lie, to assure the truth? Or should I say the answer, which is true, and have a lie result? You know, amazing question? I'm not sure I understand you, Eddie, but let me think this through. The question to answer here is, what is called truth in halakha? Is it the naked legal meaning of the words, or is it the context? You're sitting at home, the phone rings, your wife picks it up. From her tone of voice, you know this is someone you don't want to speak to. So this is what you do. You step out the door and you say, I'm not home. And your wife says, I'm sorry, he's out. Is that truth or a lie? What would you say? What do you say? No? That's a lie. Because the meaning of the question is not which side of the door is he standing on. That's not the meaning of the question. You can't get away with that. In other words, in Torah, the truth involves the context as well. Therefore, it's not a simple question you can just make it technical, get out of it on technical grounds. So what's the truth? Do I vote for the truth and be party to a lie? Or do I say a lie to ensure the truth? Fascinating question. So he said to himself, maybe I have a precedent for this. The Talmud says, and the Rambam brings this down, what happens in the following case? Let's say there's a trial by the Sanhedrin. You know, the Sanhedrin was the great Jewish court of 23 judges or 71 judges, able to judge capital cases without now going into all the details of a capital case. So let's say, for example, this individual here is on trial for his life. And you are all the members of the Sanhedrin. I'm sure by now you're all halachic black belts. You could all be, no doubt you could all be on the Sanhedrin. They sat in a semicircle, okay, and they voted from junior to senior. Do you mind being the junior member of the Sanhedrin? Okay, you got to be pretty big to be on the Sanhedrin. And Charlie Harari, Rabbi, 10th Dan, black belt, Harari, he's going to be the leading sage of the generation to cast the final vote. Now watch what happens. They start voting. Now when it comes to a capital case in Judaism, there are incredible stringencies to get a person killed. Virtually impossible. And one of them is, for example, a majority is not good enough. You need more than a simple majority. And there are many unusual, extreme requirements to get somebody killed. One of them is this. There's one massive majority, one particular proportion of majority to convict that paradoxically acquits. If that number of judges say he's guilty, he's free. What proportion is that? 100%. If they all say guilty, he's innocent. Does that make sense? Yes? No? Well, I'll tell you why it makes sense. Because if nobody could argue in his favor at all, we're concerned they didn't examine the case well enough. First of all Jews agreeing, that's definitely wrong. I mean, there's something wrong with that, right? So if they all agree, they all say guilty, he's free. That's the law. By the way, there's a wonderful play about this, made into a movie in the 1950s. It's called 12 Angry Men. It's a classic piece of drama. This is the last DVD you should buy before you kick out the screen in your TV and use it to keep your Gemaras. But anyway, it's a fantastic movie, 100% kosher. There's not a woman in the whole movie. The movie consists of 12 American jurors after watching a trial. You seen this, Charlie? You haven't seen it? You're too young, that's your problem. Henry Fonda, 1953, black and white. Anyway, this jury have heard a trial in which a young man killed his father, witnessed clearly. Right? The witnesses saw it, there's no doubt about it. They walk into the jury room, 11 of the 12 vote guilty immediately, and one man thinks there's room for doubt. And as the drama unfolds, he tries to show the others why there may be room. It's brilliant drama, and you should look it up. You read the screenplay, it's fantastic. So in Judaism, you need at least one person to argue in favor of the individual, otherwise we close the case. Is this clear? Now watch this, watch carefully. This man's on trial for his life. You are all members of the Sanhedrin. The voting goes like this: guilty, guilty, execute, death, guilty. They all say guilty until Rabbi Harari has to cast the final vote, and he knows the man's guilty. What does he say? You hear the question? Well, you've got to enjoy the question. If he says guilty, the man walks free, which is wrong. Should he say guilty, which is true, and have a wrong result? Or should he say innocent, which is false, to guarantee a right result? What do you say? You see the dilemma? What would you say? So the Rambam brings down, the law is a judge has to speak according to the truth that he sees. Lefi ma she'enav ro'ot, what his eyes see. He says, guilty, the man walks free. That's his problem, not ours. That's the law. So he thought to himself, so I'm sitting on this bet din. I got two liars with me. I got to say the truth. Says the Pischei Tshuva, wrong. You've got a wrong comparison. You cannot learn it from there. It's not at all like that case. Let me try to explain why. Do we have the situation clear, the problem? The people in translation, you understand me? Yes? Good? Okay, brilliant. Let's take a step back and examine our question of whether your free will can ever affect anyone else. There seem to be two approaches. Either everything you do to somebody else was meant to happen anyway, you're simply playing into the hands of his destiny. You pulled the trigger, but he would have died anyway. Or, very distressingly, perhaps you can do something to somebody that was not going to happen. Let me try to convince you, and I'm sharing with you what I heard from Rav Moshe Shapira. The correct Torah approach to this is that you can affect someone else and you can bring a person into a situation of danger where they will die if they were not going to die otherwise. That's how powerful your free will is. I know it's distressing and I know it's strange, but let me try to prove it to you. Let me say it again. I'm going to try to prove to you that according to Torah thinking, somebody could kill someone else who was not decreed to die. I'm not talking about Mr. Horn's case, where there was a decree of death. That you cannot change. Or a decree to save him. That you cannot change. I'm talking about a person with no decree. He's walking down the street. Hashem has got no plans for him that day. Could you then kill him, put him in danger and kill him when he would not have died otherwise? Yes, you can. Let me give you a few proofs. Yes. Yes, I'm not talking about Hashem's knowledge. That's another whole, even more. Yes. I'm talking what's called a divine decree, gzeira min hashamayim. There's no gzeira on him to die. Could you invoke one and get him killed? Stay with me. You'll see where I'm going. This is difficult, gentlemen, ladies. It's distressing, but stay with me. Let me give you the most succinct proof that I know. I heard this from Rav Yaakov Weinberg, but it's a classic proof. Listen well. We say, Vayomer David el Gad. King David said to God, Niplana b'yad Hashem, let us fall into Hashem's hand, ki Rabbi Rachamav, because His mercy is very great. Uviyad Adam alepola, let me not fall into human hand. Very interesting. Hashem came to David and He said to him, you and your people need suffering. You have sinned, you need to suffer. I give you a choice. Do you want a disease among your people, or do you want a war with your enemies? King David said, you know what, Hashem, I'll take the disease because that comes from you. If it comes from you, I'll get no more than I deserve. But if it comes from a human being, he may hurt me more than you would. What do you see from this? That a human being can cause you more suffering than Hashem would have done. If you believe that everything that happens is divinely decreed, what's the difference? Hashem, I'll leave it to you. I'll get no more than I deserve. David didn't say that. He said, I'll take the disease that comes from you. Ki Rabbi Rachamav, your mercy is great. But there's no trusting a Philistine soldier. Do you see this proof? It's very elegant. Okay? And therefore, by the way, there are halachic authorities that rule this in practical halacha. If you are fleeing from some danger and you have to go through two types of dangerous territory, one in which there's an epidemic and one in which there's a war. According to this, choose this disease. Don't choose war. Is this clear? Because disease got nothing to do with human free will. No self-respecting bacterium is going to touch you unless God decrees it. But there's no trusting some mercenary soldier who might kill you even if you don't deserve it. Do you see this? Is this clear? If you believe that whatever's coming your way, every Philistine sword has your name on, every bullet has a name on, flip a coin, what's the difference? Are we satisfied with this proof? Yes, no? Okay. Let me give you what is by far the most classic proof, and that's in the story of Joseph, and it comes up a number of times, but I'll just give you one. Yes?
If Hashem doesn't have a plan to kill that man today, doesn't He still have one for that man to not live any further someday in the future?
Sure, but you've cheated him of 25 years of life. Hashem had a plan for this person. 25 years of life, he's going to get married, have children, and then someone tries to kill him, and you cut him short. That's unbelievable. That's what we're saying. With certain limitations. I'll explain the limitations. Yes? Because an epidemic comes from God. It's not a human hand. There's no human free will behind it. If you go through an epidemic, you will only get what God decrees. But if you go through a war, the human might kill you even if God did not decree that. This is what we're suggesting. This is radical. Can you... Yeah. You're doing that, indeed. You cut him short. Yeah, yes. Well, no. We talked about where there was no gzeira. This is the classic case we're talking about, where God... There may be, and if that's the case, you will not be able to change it. I'm asking you where there's no gzera. Let me give you the classic case. Right, I'm glad this is getting you a little worked up. It should. Let me give you the classic case. Joseph approaches his brothers. You remember the story. You know the story. The brothers see him approaching. This is classic. This is the famous Or HaChaim, the great Sephardi genius, right, who teaches this subject. Actually, the Zohar says the same thing. But the Or HaChaim is the most famous and best known source. Listen to what he says. It's an unbelievable classic. And if you don't know this, you haven't approached the subject professionally. Joseph approaches the brothers. They see him coming. They say, "Behold, this dreamer of dreams approaches. Let's kill him and see what becomes of his dreams." What did they mean, says Or HaChaim? They meant that Joseph had dreams that we would bow down to him in the future. We believe that he's a liar. The dreams it's a fake. The dreams never happened. Let's kill him because he's an imposter, without going into all the background, how they could judge a brother and how they could kill him. But that was their decision. So then they said to themselves, "Can we be sure that we're right? Maybe we'll kill him, we'll be wrong." And they said, "No, of course we can guarantee that we're right. If Joseph's born here and he's 17 years old, he has dreams that somewhere in the future we'll bow down to him, and we claim those dreams are a lie. If we kill him now, we immediately demonstrate that the dreams are false. There ain't going to be a future in which we'll bow down to him because he's dead." Is this clear? Justice will be done, and justice will be seen to be done. Kill him now, we prove that we were right. Just 1 second, let me just give you the proof, and then I'll take questions. Reuben, the oldest brother, stepped forward and he said, "Gentlemen, you're making a serious mistake. I'm telling you that human free will is so powerful that you could kill him even if God had not intended him to die. And you will conclude that his dreams are false, and you'll be wrong. Hashem's going to say, human free will, I created the world for that. I'm not interfering with your free will. You want to kill him against my wishes? I'm going to stand back. I do not interfere in these circumstances with your free will, because that's what I created the world for." So they said to Reuben, "What should we do?" Reuben said, "Don't touch him. Put him in this pit of snakes and scorpions, because no self-respecting scorpion is going to touch you unless it's decreed, because a scorpion's got no free will." Is this clear? The pit was not full of snakes and scorpions, but they were enough to be dangerous, and therefore let's put him in a situation of non-human danger. And listen to the words. In Torah, this is one message you have to get clear. Torah never moves without a text. There has to be a proof text that is exactly what you're saying. And listen to the Or HaChaim. The Torah says, "Vayatzilehu miyadam." Reuben saved him from their hand. Miyad habechiri. He did not save him from his fate or his destiny. He saved him from the effect of a human hand. Reuben was not interested in saving Joseph. Let God do whatever he wants to him, but don't you touch him, because your human free will could harm him even if God had not decreed death upon him. But a scorpion, the Medrash says, when they saw Joseph approaching, they set their dogs on him, because dogs have got no free will either. He'll only die if he's meant to die. But as soon as you raise your hand against someone, your free will, all bets are off. Do we see this proof? Any objections to this proof? Is that true? Yes. The Or HaChaim. I'll come to that in a moment. I'll come to the Holocaust in a moment. Yes. Speak loud. Nachon, that can happen as well. I'm saying that it could be the opposite. Stay with me, I'll try to explain. Yes.
We say all the hands of heaven except for yours and mine.
Yes.
And also cold. If there's no self-respecting cold.
That's you. When you go into the rain and you get pneumonia or a cold, that's your fault. There's no problem with that. If you do something dangerous and get harmed, we don't have a problem. The question is when you do something dangerous to somebody else who doesn't deserve it. That's the problem. Just 1 second. Just stay with me. Let's just build this, okay, before you argue. Let's hear it. Just hang on 1 second. 1 second. I'm glad there's a lot of response to this. Let me just try to build it for you. Let me give you a couple of more proofs. And once you start to see this, you see it everywhere. Everywhere. Here's one example. When the Jewish people were enslaved in Egypt, that was predicted, correct? Avram Avinu was told, your children will be enslaved in a strange land. So when the Egyptians enslaved the Jewish people, why were they guilty? They were simply fulfilling a divine decree. Is this clear? Why did God punish the Egyptians for doing what he said they would do? The Egyptians should claim reward. Hashem, we did what you wanted. See the question? Anyone? This is a classic question of the Rambam and the Ramban. Let me just explain the question. God told Abraham, we're not talking about what God knew. We're talking about what God said openly in the world. He said they will be enslaved in a foreign land and they will be tormented in that land. The Egyptians torment them and then you punish them. All they're doing is what you predicted. You hear the question. There are many answers, but let me tell you one answer of the Ramban and the Ravid. He says this. Listen carefully. The Egyptians were only punished for torturing the Jewish people more than was decreed. They weren't punished for doing what God predicted. That had to happen. But they were more cruel than they needed to be. What do you see from this? You could be more cruel to somebody than God decreed. You see it? Yes? No? Taroeh? Tam mabsut im ze? I hope so. Okay, yeah.
So the reason why I don't think we see the with Joseph and his brother, it was their free will that put him into that pit.
They put him into a place of danger, that's your free will. But when you will die in the place of danger depends on the scorpion or the snake. And no self-respecting snake or scorpion will touch you unless he's been decreed by God, because he's got no free will. By the way, maybe this is what's bothering you. Good. Excellent. Yeah, I'm with you. The Maharal asks your question. The Maharal says, if you throw a person onto a pile of snakes and scorpions, you killed him. Like a stampede, right? Because, in fact, the Mishnah says that. If you hold someone's head underwater and you say, I didn't kill him, it was just the lack of oxygen. No. That's a Gemara in Sanhedrin that talks about this. Says the Maharal, the pit was not full of snakes and scorpions, but there were enough to make it a dangerous place. No guarantee of death, but danger. You can put someone in a situation of danger. What happens there is up to God. Is this clear? The Zohar says, in a situation of danger, he may be protected by a miracle, but you need a bigger miracle to protect you from humans than from animals, because humans have free will. That's the distinction here. Clear? Okay. There are many other proofs. I don't want to keep you too long. I'll just give you one more. Just hold on 1 second. Listen to this. This is the Alshik says this, but many others bring the same thing. Once you see it, you will see so many examples. Read my book, you'll see a whole long list of them. But here's one. Daniel was a prophet who was an advisor to the king, right? Darius II, in fact, was probably a son of Esther. Anyway, let's call him a non-Jewish king. He was the king of Persia at the time. Daniel was an advisor in his court. The other members of the court were jealous of Daniel. They accused the king and told him that Daniel was a traitor. So the king said, you know what? I believe he's a totally righteous tzaddik and he would never betray me. But you know what I'll do to prove it? I'll put him in a pit of hungry lions. You know the story of Daniel in the lion's den? I believe he's a righteous individual. He'll be protected miraculously like his friends Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah were protected in the fire. If you're right and he's a traitor, the lions will tear him to pieces. If he's righteous as I say, he will be protected. So what did he do? The king took Daniel and he threw him into a pit of hungry lions. And then it says he sealed the mouth of the pit with a big stone because he was worried that the jealous individuals who denounced Daniel to him would come and kill him in the pit with their spears and then say that the lions killed him. What do you see from this? The king was not afraid of hungry lions because no self-respecting hungry lion is going to touch you unless it's decreed that you will do so if you're a big enough tzaddik, but there's no telling what humans can do to you. Is this clear? He knows that Daniel will be protected against hungry lions, no problem. But human beings, all bets are off. That doesn't prove anything. And therefore, he protected him from the humans, although he is not concerned about the animals. Tafasta? Tamaskimiti? Okay, so, yeah.
Surely if the decree is meant to be...
I'm talking where there's no decree. Let me correct you 1 second. Listen to the language of Orach Chaim. Efshar laharog mishu, it's possible to kill somebody. Lemishelo nigzar alav mita min hashamayim. That's his language. You could kill somebody whom it's not decreed from heaven that he should die. He's not talking about somebody where it is decreed. He's not talking about somebody where God protects him. He's talking about somebody who has no decree to die today. Could you invoke one? That's all he's talking about.
And someone who doesn't have free will
Yes.
could not do that if there's no...
Indeed, a 14-year-old Arab walking onto a bus with a bomb on his back is irrelevant. You have to be a Baal Bechira, you have to be somebody big enough to affect somebody else's fate. I'll get to that in a moment. So, this is the notion. Listen to the Sajagon, who addresses your point. Listen carefully, it's exquisite. You know, the further back in history you go, the shorter they were able to speak. Listen to this. He says, when somebody's walking down the street with a decree to die, and then someone kills him, that means he was going to die anyway, because God decreed it, and then someone kills him. All that happened is a death becomes a murder. Mita niye retzach, that's all he says. It would have been a death, now it's called a murder. When God decreed that you would lose property and someone stole it, all that happened is the loss became a theft. But it would have happened anyway. That's where there's a decree. But where there's no decree, then it's up to the question of, the Chazon Ish says, God could decree on you, no decree. You don't deserve protection. You deserve to be left to chance. You live like a statistic, I treat you that way. Someone wants to take you out, they'll take you out. Someone doesn't, you'll be okay. That's the decree. If you live on a more spiritual level, you have divine protection. Yes. Yes, speak. Yes. No, I can't do that now because it'll take us way off track. We are limited time. You read my book. Okay, buy 2 copies, then you'll really get it. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Great question. What happens if you kill someone who's decreed to be killed? You are fully guilty because you committed murder. Guilty of murder. Why? Because the Torah says so. He was going to die anyway. That's not your problem. So there's no question that you're guilty when you commit the act. Yes. Can someone force a Rasha to donate? Absolutely, why not? Who gets the merit? That's the question. The person who forced him, if he forced him completely. Okay, I'm glad your mind thinks in the direction. How can you get people to give to Kiruv? Yeah, great. Yeah. Yeah. Great, so stay with me for the next step. Okay. Are we saying, give me a moment, are we saying you could do something to anyone under all circumstances? No. So listen carefully. Here are the limitations. Many limitations. Mr. Horn asked about the Holocaust, so let's talk about that as well. Limitation number 1. You can only affect other people to the extent that they lack zechut. You can only do something to somebody else where he's vulnerable. If he has divine protection, you cannot touch him. It's a question of your free will against his merit. For example, Mordechai. Mordechai stands in front of Haman and he drives him insane. What was his plan? To drive him into such an anti-Semitic frenzy that he would self-destruct. But that's a very dangerous game. The principle is Eretz nitna biyad rasha. The world is given into the hands of the wicked. You don't do that. He knew he could not be touched. He knew he had enough merit, without going to why, to protect him from Haman. If you have enough zechut, you'll be protected. The fear with Joseph was maybe he didn't have enough zechut to protect him from the brothers. Maybe he'd done something wrong to make him vulnerable. Is this clear? And therefore, to the extent that you have spiritual protection, you cannot be touched. The question is if you're vulnerable. Let me give you a practical expression of this. This is why some people do not buy life insurance. Let me explain. First of all, you should buy life insurance, okay? My son sells it, you should see him, you should buy life insurance. But I'm telling you, life insurance is very important. But some people make a calculation that they don't buy, and I'll tell you why. Watch this. Mr. A walking down the street, he has no life insurance policy. Someone tries to kill him. God looks down and says, I can't let this happen. Your wife doesn't deserve this. You don't deserve protection, but your wife's a righteous lady, and you bring home the bacon or whatever you bring home, you know. She needs you because you support her, so God will protect you. But if you're walking down the street, you've got a $100 million life insurance policy, and somebody tries to kill you, God's going to look down and say, your wife's okay. Right? With some husbands, she's better off, you know. And therefore, that's a logic for not having, and you should use this logic. Make yourself indispensable to so many poor families that you support single-handed, that when somebody tries to wipe you out, God's going to say, you know what, it's just too complicated. I'll put up with you in the world a bit longer because I need you, right? This is not the highest motivation for tzedakah, but it is kosher. Is this clear? So number 1, we're talking about your spiritual merit protecting you. Number 2, this applies to an individual, not a group. Number 3, Mr. Horn's point. A Holocaust is completely different. A war, Milchamas Ani Asisi, God says, I control wars. A Holocaust, which is a mass destruction, is another story entirely. The language in the Talmud is, Kevan shenitten reshus lemashchis lahashchis, when God gives protection to the destroyer to destroy, shuv eno mavchin, he no longer discerns between the righteous and the wicked. That's another whole discussion. Does not apply to this. And finally, another exception is a king. A king or a president or a prime minister or the mayor of a major city, no free will at all. Leiv melech b'yad Hashem. The heart of a king is Hashem's hand. In our society, when a man's elected president, he thinks he has real power. In Jewish society, he just became a puppet, no free will at all. In other words, you get what you deserve as your leader. I hate to think of the American people, but anyway, the point is that you get what you deserve, okay? Just one second. Meaning, the reason you vote, listen to this, the reason you vote as a Jew is not because it makes any difference. The reason you vote is because it's called ishtadlus. You have to do what you have to do. Just like you have to make an effort to make a living, you have to vote as a citizen. But the people get what they deserve. Those are many, many limitations. And therefore, in order for one person to affect another, you have to be a Baal Bechira, you have to have the power of free will, and the person has to be vulnerable to your free will. But if that is the case, you could affect it. Before you ask any questions, let me give you one final step, and we'll come back to our case of the three judges. Are we all together so far? Okay, let me summarize at this point. Most people think you can never do anything to anyone else that was not decreed. Says the great Or HaChaim and the Al-Shich and the Malbim and the Netziv and all our great commentaries. And if you're a Sephardi, you might like to read Rav Yaakov Hillel. He has a fantastic article on this. It's called Yesh Nispe Belo Mishpat. You can email me, I'll send it to you. I have his permission to reprint it. A fantastic piece in which he defends the Or HaChaim and shows that this is the only way to go. So there are many classic sources on this. In fact, I don't know any Torah source that says the opposite. Okay? Let me take one more step. Stay with me for the last few minutes. The Chinuch, the great classic 800-year-old work dealing with the mitzvahs, very embarrassing for us. One of the great classics of Jewish literature. It was written for a 12-year-old boy. Right? It was written by the great rabbi of the time for his 12-year-old son to prepare him for bar mitzvah. A little embarrassing. But nevertheless, and it's a great work. You should buy it, and every Shabbat you can go through one mitzvah. He discusses in Taf Kuf Chaf Dalet, that is 524, the following mitzvah. In Judaism, there is a law called Eidim Zomimin. We don't have time now to explain it fully, but I'll give you just a brief notion. You know, we need two witnesses in any court case in Jewish law. Let's say this person's on trial for his life. Two witnesses say he killed, and two witnesses say he did not. Case closed, right? Case closed, no convincing evidence. But watch this. This you do not have in secular law. These two witnesses come along and say this person killed. These two witnesses say, we don't know about the murder, but you are lying. You could not have seen it. You were with us at another place at that time. They don't contradict the testimony. They insult and contradict the witnesses. Is this clear? Okay. So in this case, the Torah has two very strange laws. Law number one, we believe the second witnesses, not the first. That's interesting. Why? Why do we believe that they are framing him and not that they are framing them? Interesting question. I'll leave you to think about that for homework. But here comes the more strange quirk. This is unique. When these two witnesses testify that somebody killed, and these two witnesses say they're lying, we do to these first two witnesses what they tried to do to the victim. Is that clear? They wanted to make him pay money, they pay. They wanted to kill him, they get killed. But here comes the strange part. We only do to them, to these witnesses, what they tried to do to the individual if they were unsuccessful, if they failed. Let me make it absolutely clear. Two witnesses walk in, they say this person killed. We hear the evidence, we take that person out to kill him. Just before he dies, two more witnesses come along and say, they're lying! What do? We stop the execution, hear their testimony, free the individual, and kill these two. But if these two say that he killed, and they take him out to kill him, and they kill him dead, and then two others come along and say they're lying, no problem, scot-free. You hear this bizarre consequence? Two people try to kill somebody, and they failed, we kill them. They try to kill him, and they succeed, no problem. Listen carefully to what the Chinuch says. Listen carefully, this is exquisite. I will give you a partial explanation. This is a very interesting question, and there are many Kabbalistic explanations, but listen to his one. He says, if these two testify that somebody killed, and then they kill him, you know why we don't touch them? Because if he died, he must have had it coming. What do you want from them? There's no way that he could have died if he didn't deserve it. Is this good for us or bad? But listen to what he adds. He says the reason we know that the person must have had it coming is because this is a bet din. And there's a verse that tells us that Hashem sits with every Beis Din. Elokim nitzav ba'adas adayonim. That's how he quotes the verse. The Rambam says the only reason that humans can ever administer justice is because God said, I'll be there and I'll guarantee the outcome. Listen carefully. 1 second. New ears. What's this? These two testify that he killed and he died. He must have had it coming because this is a Beis Din. God assures the outcome. Now we do what's called a diuk. A diuk means a simple inference. The only reason we know it's guaranteed is because this is a beis din. But if it's not a beis din, it's an individual acting unilaterally on the street, then anything could happen. Let me prove it to you. Do you like it? Let me prove it to you. If the chinuch meant that anything that happens to anybody is always decreed, he wouldn't have to quote the verse that it's guaranteed in a beis din. Is this clear? If he understood that whatever happens to you must be a divine decree, then it's always the case. You don't have to tell me it's guaranteed because it's a beis din and Hashem assures the outcome. You hear this, diuk? The reason we can be guaranteed here is because Hashem guaranteed the outcome, because this is a beis din, clearly implying that if it's not, then anything could happen. Let's come back to our case and I'll stop for questions. Says the Pischei Tshuva, if you're sitting in a beis din or a sanhedrin and you disagree with the majority, convince them, argue. You fail, vote. You get outvoted, what's the problem? The majority voted, you're outvoted, that's what Hashem wanted. But if you're sitting on a beis din with two liars, this ain't no beis din. Hashem's not guaranteeing the outcome of two jokers and you, and therefore if you hold that they're lying, say I don't know. Is this clear? Okay, let's have a few questions and we'll stop. Yes, Mr. The Rambam says clearly that the last judge has to speak the truth and the result is not his problem. He has to say guilty, it's a unanimous verdict, the man's freed. That's what he has to do. He has to judge according to the truth that he sees, the laws of the Torah operate. But not if he feels that others are lying. Yes, you had a question. Answer. Any final question? Yeah.
Reuben and the brothers in the pit.
Yes.
Their question was whether or not Yosef, there was a decree.
No, their question was, perhaps there's no decree, but he's vulnerable because he did something wrong, which means we could kill him even though he doesn't deserve to die because he's vulnerable. Yeah.
Definitely he's not protected. They thought, definitely.
Reuben told them, you're making a mistake. God will not protect somebody miraculously against free will.
He could.
Absolutely.
And there are cases.
No question about that. There are many people protect, but you can't rely on that, and therefore leave it to the animals. Indeed. But we put him in a situation where the animals provide the danger, then he'll get what he deserves because no animal has free will. Yes?
What is considered free will? And question on that is intoxication considered free will?
You're talking about damaging yourself. This is another whole area. Intoxication. If you drink irresponsibly and then harm someone, okay, you're not responsible at the time, but you're well responsible for getting drunk in the first place. If you know you're going to drink and then drive, okay, the law will hold you accountable, even though at the time you were completely out of it.
What if you're voluntarily
In what?
intoxicated?
Then there's no question you're exempt, and even legally you're exempt if you're not accountable. Everybody agrees to that. That's a legal principle. If you're mentally ill, or you're under...
What if you're sleepwalking and you kill someone?
If you can convince the court that you genuinely sleepwalking and unaware and unconscious and could not have prevented it, of course you're exempt. There's no question about that. The legal system accepts that too, yes.
So in that case where the two said that he's guilty and then he was killed, and
Yes.
the other two come.
Yes.
What if that guy was killed, his mission on earth was done,
Yes.
and so
Indeed, it's possible.
are those two really they don't get any backlash at all for lying and getting that guy killed?
The Torah says that if they testified and their testimony was heard and it's valid according to the rules of procedure of beis din, and the guy died, the case is closed. Absolutely. By the way, we never know that the truth happened in a beis din. Many commentaries say he might not have committed this crime, but he needed to die anyway, and God guaranteed the outcome. The Rambam says the only reason you can rely on a court is because God guarantees it. Okay, last question. Yes. Yeah, speak. Speak loud. That's not loud enough. Yes. That's a great question. The question is, if a sanhedrin convicts someone, why don't they leave it to God? Put him in a situation of danger and leave it up to God. And the answer is because the Torah says no. The Torah says, I give you a mitzvah of administering justice. I want you to run the world. Do you understand? If you don't, I may take care of that guy, God says. But I give you a mitzvah administering justice. Absolutely. And there are many reasons for it. I'll just give you one. Do you know in Jewish law who administers the punishment? You know who? The witnesses. There's no professional executioner. And Maharal explains, because the witnesses saw this, their spiritual sensitivity was damaged in the world, they have to set it to rights. Do you understand? They've got to correct what they saw distorted in the world. And so there are many reasons for the justice procedure. Let Mr. Horn have the last word. Great. That's a vote of confidence. Thank you very much.